We are live. Hey, how is it going? Lee Hayward here with the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat for Friday, July the 29th. And the way these video chats work is I'm going to be hanging out here for the next little while, answering any questions and topics of discussion that you may have related to fitness and nutrition, building muscle, losing fat, any specific challenges that you're dealing with when it comes to your workouts or with your eating plan, or any of that stuff related to fitness and nutrition and achieving your goals when it comes to that. Feel free to type those questions or topics of discussion into our chat window, and I'll do the best that I can to help you out over the course of our video chat today. And before I get into it, for those of you who are regulars to the chat, you know my routine, the drill. I always want to do a quick audio video check to make sure that my microphone is working, that you can hear me, that you can see me, and it's coming through loud and clear. So if it is coming through loud and clear, please do me a favor and type into our video chat window there, loud and clear, just to let me know that it is coming through. And I'm not talking to, you're not seeing a mute head or flapping his gab on the video camera here. Because I've had that in the past where sometimes the audio doesn't come through. Thank you, Dan. Much appreciated. Dan's a regular to the video chats. We have Chris joining in loud and clear. Thank you, Chris. Much appreciated again. Today's video chat, as many of you, the regulars, have noticed, I'm a bit late getting started with today's video chat. Normally, I go live at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Today, it's 6 p.m. Eastern time. And the reason for that is because I've been busy. Right now, I'm in the process of selling one of my rental properties, and the sale actually closed today. So I was running back and forth, between meetings with my real estate agent and meetings with the lawyer and the tenants who are still living in that rental property and everything else. So, and plus I still have work to do in addition to that, right? I had several coaching calls with some of my Muscle After 40 coaching students today. So today was a very busy day, and I never had a chance to do the live at 5 as I normally do. But instead of postponing the chat entirely, I decided, you know what, I'll just do it an hour later, right? So hopefully it actually works out better for some people. I know it's going to be too late for some. It might be just right for others, but hey, that's the situation. That's why I was an hour late starting today. It's because I was just running all over town trying to get things done, plus deal with work and life in general. So it's been a busy day for me, but thankfully getting it all done, right? Better late than never. All right. So again, for those of you who are brand new to the video chat, I want to welcome you. It's always nice to have new people tuning in. And the way these work is, again, I'm going to be answering questions and topics of discussion that you may have. So if there's anything you would like to ask, feel free to type it into our chat window. Now, in the meantime, I actually have a couple questions, a couple good ones that were sent in earlier through Facebook. And if you're not friends with me on Facebook, friend me up. If you have a Facebook account, do a search for Lee Hayward and add me as a friend, and we can communicate that way. I'm quite active on Facebook. I'm actually more active on Facebook than I am on YouTube because Facebook is a very interactive platform. I just like it, and it's a great way to have a two-way conversation, whereas YouTube is kind of a one-way conversation. Nothing wrong with either or. There's pros and cons to both. But I like the personal touch that you can have when you actually have a back and forth conversation through Facebook. So this one, let me just dig it up here. It's buried in my messages here. This one's from Andrew. Andrew's a regular to our video chats, and we're friends on Facebook, and we chat back and forth on a regular basis. And here's his question. He says, Lee, any chance I can have a chat with you here? Yes, there is. And he says, I really don't know anybody else better to talk about this. And I've recently changed my program. I've increased my calories. I'm still stuck making virtually no progress on many of my isolation exercises. It's really demotivating me. My protein intake is high. I'm eating in a slight calorie surplus, but I just feel like my lifts on a lot of exercises are going nowhere. And he made a key point there to say his isolation exercises. And that's a key thing that I want to address here now. It says, I feel like I'm doing everything right. I'm always trying to train harder than last time, going close to failure on every set. but it's just no progress at all on some of the lifts. I don't know if maybe I'm still not eating enough, if I'm training too hard, doing too many sets, not training enough. I'm really confused. Would it be okay if I send you my program, blah, blah, blah? And he did. He sent me a copy of his program, and we were chatting back and forth. But bottom line, that's the gist of it. Andrew is really pushing himself hard. You know, he's trying to gain muscular body weight. He's doing quote unquote lean bulk, if you will. And he's making some really good progress, but he's in the phase where he can't appreciate the progress he's making. And when it comes to making gains, especially in your exercises, you need to look at this from a bigger picture perspective. There's a big difference between adding weight to a compound exercise versus adding weight to an isolation exercise. And the rate of strength gains you make is going to be in proportion to the size of the exercise. So let me give you an example to make this make sense, because some people are wondering what the hell is it there. Let's look at adding 5 pounds to a 200-pound deadlift compared to adding 5 pounds to a 20-pound dumbbell curl. All right, 5 pounds to a 200-pound deadlift or 5 pounds to a 20-pound dumbbell curl. Both are 5-pound jumps, right? And like if you're in the gym lifting dumbbells, at least in most gyms in North America, they go in 5-pound increments, right? So if you're lifting 20s, the next one's up are 25s, right? Like that's the smallest jump you can make. That's a big jump. Percentage-wise, adding 5 pounds to a 20-pound dumbbell curl, that's 25%. And times 2, right? I mean, like that's a massive jump. Like you got 2 dumbbells, right? You're doing your curls. Whereas 5 pounds to a 200-pound deadlift, that's only 2.5%. It's a small jump. So it's much easier to increase your weight by 2.5% than it is to increase it by 25%, right? I mean, like, so to look at it in perspective and in proportion. So when you're doing your big compound exercises, your deadlifts and your bench presses and your leg presses and your squats and your rows and whatever, all these big, heavy compound exercises, it's going to be a lot easier to make those little 5-pound jumps in weight because the exercise is bigger and the percentage of the weight you're lifting when you're adding a 5 pounds is much smaller in comparison to the total weight lifted. Whereas isolation exercises, adding 5 pounds is monumental in some exercises. So you're not going to see big jumps in weight on a week-to-week basis, right? Like a lot of people say, oh, I want to try and add 5 pounds to an exercise every week or 5 pounds every month or whatever. Like it ain't going to happen with small isolation exercises. And a lot of times, once you get to a certain level, you're going to keep the same weight with many of your isolation exercises. And I'll use myself as an example, like side-lateral raises, bicep curls, tricep kickbacks, like a lot of these things, I use the same weights, or I'm in a range. And depending, like some days I feel a bit stronger, so I may go a little heavier, or I may do like heavier weights and lower reps. Other days I might do lighter weights and higher reps, but I'm always within a range, and it's not something that I'm going to be moving up big on. Like, for example, side lateral raises, I rarely go above 20 or 25-pound dumbbells. Like that's where I'm at. And if I go heavier, like if I try to go 30s or more, then I end up having to swing and cheat and use momentum. Whereas if I keep a nice, strict, controlled movement using a pure muscle contraction, not just heaving and swinging, 20s or 25s is more than enough. And I give you a little strategy, a little tip. If you want to make your isolation exercises feel harder and get more muscle activation from them, slow down the tempo, right? Just purposely slow it down. Instead of being fast and jerky, slow it down so it's a pure muscle contraction. You're getting lots of time under tension. And then when you're at the peak of that exercise, like hold the peak contraction for a couple of seconds, really squeeze and contract the muscles. Like, for example, you're doing a dumbbell curl. Instead of just heaving and swinging the weights up like you see most people do, like slowly contract, squeeze, hold, flex your biceps, and then slowly lower it back down. And you can take what would be a light weight and make that feel way harder and get way more muscle activation, more muscle stimulation, more time under tension, and more growth from the same weight. So you can actually make your isolation exercises feel heavier by the way that you do your technique and the tempo that you use. So this is a more advanced strategy. Instead of always trying to increase the weight, try and make those lighter weights provide more muscle stimulation for you, especially when you're in those exercises where you're feeling like let's just say the 20-pound dumbbell curl, it's feeling a bit too light, but if you went to 25s, it's too heavy. Like if you're in that gray area, right, where it's like, oh, man, like I wish I had something in between, right? Maybe if I had a 21-pound dumbbell, like that would be ideal, and it'd be nice if gyms did make the smaller increments like that. But if you don't have access to small incremental weights, you can do what I'm suggesting here by slowing down the tempo. Another thing you can do is just increase the repetitions. That's another way to make progress with your isolation exercises. So like work within a repetition range. Say you're doing 3 sets of 10 with the 20-pound dumbbell curl. Well, for your next workout, try to get 3 sets of 11. And then for the following workout, try to get 3 sets of 12, and then 3 sets of 13, and then 14 and 15. And when you get 3 sets of 15, then increase to the 25s and then drop the reps back down to 10. So now you're doing 3 sets of 10. And then once that starts to feel easy, then try to go 3 sets of 11, 3 sets of 12, 3 sets of 13, 14, 15, and then go through it in that pattern where you're working within a repetition range and building up rep by rep, in a progressive overload fashion. And once you hit a high rep range, drop the reps back down, increase the weight, and then build it up again. So it's like a stepping stone, like a structured progressive overload pattern to allow you to accommodate the resistance for these smaller isolation exercises where they're hard to increase the weight on the exercise. So that's a very practical way to go about it in most commercial gyms or most home gyms. Another thing that you can do, and they're not very popular, but they're super practical and super effective, is you can buy fractional weight plates. If you go on Amazon and do a search for fractional weight plates, you should see them. And these are basically like, instead of the typical weight plates you see at the gym, which are like 2.5-pound plates, 5-pound plates, 10 pounds, 25s, and etc., you can literally get them in, I think as small as like 1/4 pound. So it's basically like a big washer. That's what it's like. It's like just like a big metal washer, because it's a weight plate. It's a calibrated weight plate, but it's so small. And you can get them as small as like 1/4 pound. So like you put 1/4 pound on each side, you can literally increase the resistance of an exercise by 1/2 pound. And you can buy a whole pile of these, right? So you can get them maybe like 1/4 pound, 1/2 pound, 1 pound, so that you have fractional weights where you can bridge the gap between those 5-pound jumps. And this is much more practical because in a lot of exercises, you may not have the strength to increase it by 5 pounds, but you know what? You could increase it by 1/2 pound and still make progress. And then, a couple weeks later, increase it another 1/2 pound. And the smaller the jump, the easier it is to make. And this is a safer way to train. Like, I'd much rather you make small, frequent jumps in weight versus no jump in weight at all. You keep the same weight, and then all of a sudden you try and make this big, massive jump, right? It's like someone bench pressing, 150 pounds for weeks on end, and then all of a sudden say, hey, I'm going to try 200 today, and then they just slap 200 pounds on the barbell and try it, and end up blowing out a shoulder or tearing a pec or something. Right? Like that's what you see a lot of people do. They try to make these big, massive jumps in weight. Right. Another one that I used to see at the gym, like they might bench 225 for the first time. Oh, wow, that went good. Let's put 275 on. Like, let's just slam another 50 pounds on the barbell and see what happens. And what usually happens is you get stapled to the bench. I mean, the best case scenario, you get stapled to the bench and the spotter deadlifts the bar off you. Worst case scenario, you end up hurting yourself, right? Like, say, tearing a rotator cuff or tearing a pec or, hurting yourself, like snapping your crap up, if you will, right? Something like that. So you don't want to get into those situations. If it's much better to make small, frequent jumps in weight, and the fractional weight plates are a way to do that. But again, if you don't have access to them, which you probably don't, you can order them, or you can do the repetition method that I mentioned earlier, where you increase within a repetition range. So those are ways to make progress in the small isolation exercises. And I think that's the biggest issue that Andrew is dealing with, because we've been chatting back and forth. Like, we got a little messenger thread going on, And he's a young guy. And this, the problem with a lot of young people is you're very impatient, right? I used to be a young person too, so I know what I'm talking about. I can relate to this. When you're young, like nothing happens fast enough, right? You're always impatient and you don't appreciate what you got going for you. And it's like you look at young kids, like they can't wait to grow up and be big kids, and then eventually grow up and be adults, get their driver's license and get this and get that. And they like nothing happens fast enough. They're always in a hurry, hurry, hurry. Whereas when you get older, you realize like how fast life is passing you by, and you actually want it to slow down, right? It's just the complete opposite. But when you're young, nothing happens fast enough. And I'm like, in one of our conversations I had with Andrew, he was saying like, I'm adding 5 pounds a month to my bench press. He says, is that good enough? And I'm like, is that good enough? I mean, like, that's freaking huge. That's like 5 pounds a month. That's 60 pounds a year. I mean, can you imagine if you could do that year after year after year? Like in 10 years, you'd be bench pressing 600 pounds. Like that'd be amazing. Like that is really good progress. And a lot of times people, especially young guys and people who are new to the game, they make a little bit of progress, which is actually really good. And they almost discount, saying like, oh, it's not good enough, right? I should be better than this. And they almost beat themselves up over making slow progress, because they think, well, I should be doing better. I'm not doing good enough. And I suck. And, this guy's stronger than me, and that guy's stronger than me, or this guy's bigger, or this guy's leaner. I suck. I'm not doing enough. And even though they're making progress, they're comparing themselves to other people, and it never feels fast enough. And they almost beat themselves up over making slow progress. Well, the truth is, all progress is slow progress. It is. Like nobody goes from 0 to hero overnight. Like nobody just woke up and say like, holy smokes, I'm 250-pound jacked bodybuilder with a double body weight bench press and ripped 6-pack abs. Like, no, you don't wake up like overnight and that happen. Like it takes time. It takes years. And to kind of put things in perspective, who are you comparing yourself to? Right? Like if you can relate to what I'm talking about and you're in this situation where you think like it's not happening fast enough or I'm not doing good enough, who are you actually comparing yourself to? And look at the people that you are comparing yourself to and do a deep dive and say, well, like how long have they been working out? How much effort have they put into this? And very often you're going to see people who've been working out a long time. Like a lot of times I know like even at the bodybuilding level, like they consider novice bodybuilders people who've competed in their first competition. You're considered a novice, but most people got 10, 15, 20 years of training experience before they do that first competition. So I've seen guys with 20 years experience compete in the novice category, right? So it's not a true representation of novice, if you know what I mean. And a lot of times when you see people, like maybe you're comparing yourself thinking like, oh, this guy is so much more advanced than I am. He's probably been training for 10, 15, or maybe 20 years. Like he's got a lot more experience. Even the young guys, like when you see these young influencers on Instagram and YouTube and stuff like that, guys who are maybe in their mid 20s, and they're ripped and jacked and looking amazing. Most of those guys started in their mid to early teens. Like that's when they started lifting weights. So by the time they're 25, they still got 10 or more years of training under their belt because they started when they were so young. Like that's what happens a lot of times. And then you might have someone who's still in their first year or two of training and they're comparing themselves to someone who's been doing this for over a decade. I mean, it's not a fair comparison, right? I mean, it's like me trying to learn to play guitar. Right. Okay. I'm within my first 6 months trying to play guitar. And then I'm wondering how come I'm not as good as the guy who's been playing for 20 years? Like what's the difference? Like, why can't I, riff off like he can? Well, he's been doing it for 20 years. I mean, it's ingrained at the subconscious level, after 20 years of doing something that he's mastered it. Right. It's a different level versus someone who's still in that initial newbie phase and trying to figure it all out. So when you're going through this journey, appreciate the progress you're making and compare yourself to you. Like compare yourself to who you were before. And as long as you're getting better than you were before, you're on the right track. That's all there is to it. It's just a never-ending journey of being better than you were before. And as long as you're doing that, you're making progress. And small progress compounds to big progress. Like everybody makes small progress. Even the top of the top elite level lifters, elite bodybuilders, whatever, like they're striving to make that small 5-pound jump in weight when they're, increasing their lifts. When they're trying to bulk up and pack on muscular body weight, like they're trying to increase the weight by a pound on the scale. Like it's small incremental gains, marginal gains, but it's those little marginal gains that compound over the course of several months, several years, and even over the course of decades. That leads to mastery. And that leads to when you see someone who's like, holy smokes, what the heck are you doing? It's not that they're doing anything crazy. It's that they've been doing it for a long time. And they've let those small marginal gains compound into something significant. And that's what you need to focus on. It's a common thing I see with a lot of people is being too impatient and not being a fair comparison, right? Again, it's like comparing a kindergarten student to a college graduate and wondering, why is that kindergarten student so stupid, right? They don't understand calculus and algebra and chemistry and biology. Like, heck, they're struggling to learn the alphabet and count to 10. Like, what's wrong with that stupid kindergarten student? There's nothing wrong with the student. It's just they're at a different level, right? I mean, when that college graduate was in kindergarten, he was just as stupid as the kindergarten student, right? You know what I mean? So you got to look at it from a bigger picture perspective. All right. So hopefully that helps to clarify this. And I know, Andrew, if you're not watching this right now, you're probably going to watch the replay, right? Andrew actually lives over in the UK, so it's probably quite late over there right now. All right, so moving on. Where else we got there? We've got Lee joining in. We've got Messi Flying Gar. Says, love you, watch your videos. I've been watching since 2009. You give us good advice. Thanks, man. I appreciate the support. Yeah, you've been around since the early days of the YouTube channel, because I started really making YouTube videos back in around 2008-ish, 2009. That's kind of like when things really started to take off for me when I got into making fitness videos. So yeah, you've been around since the early days of the YouTube channel. And then, of course, before the days of YouTube, it was just HTML websites. And I started that back in 97 is when I launched my very first HTML website. The very first total fitness bodybuilding website was launched in the fall of 1997 as a school project for a computer course that I was doing. We did a website development course, and we had to create a website and put it online. And I created Lee Hayward's Total Fitness Bodybuilding, right? And I put a bunch of workout programs and some nutrition content that I could muster up, the best of what I knew at the time. And I actually published a website, and that was a school project. And then snowball and fast forward, here we are today. It's still going strong, right? We got YT joining in. Says, Lee, how would one develop raw dummy strength to be able to easily manhandle people and have the strength to what? How would you develop raw dummy strength? I don't know. I don't even know what you would consider raw dummy strength, but what I said earlier, just building strength, compounding it over time. All right, moving on. Nick joining in. I actually was chatting to Nick earlier today. Nick is a part of our Muscle After 40 coaching program. He says with side lateral raises, he's at 10 to 15, and it's hard. He does 3 sets of that. You know what? I respect that for sharing that. A lot of times, guys have an ego when it comes to their exercises. They want to, like, nobody wants to lift the little tiny 10-pound dumbbells, right? Hey, I'm a full-grown man. Right? I got to lift the big weights. I can't be down in the puny section of the dumbbell rack. I got to be up in the middle, or at least to the heavy side, right? And you let your ego take over, and then it's swinging and heaving and jerking, and not good range of motion. And yes, you are moving heavier weight, but you're not maximizing the muscle stimulation. And very often, if you're lifting so heavy that you can't control it and you can't use full range of motion and get a full, full stretch, full peak contraction, and then do so with good control, you're not maximizing your progress. You'd be much better off starting with a lighter weight, working on the form, and then slowly build it up. And then even then, with certain exercises, you're not going to progress to the massive levels. Like, I don't know anybody who can do a strict side lateral raise with 100-pound dumbbells. Now, I've seen guys do it, but it's not strict. It's heaving and swinging and jerking. Like, some of the bodybuilder videos or some YouTube videos and stuff, you'll see guys doing it, but it ain't slow and controlled, and there ain't no peak contraction. It's just literally swinging and moving, right? They're basically using about the same strict form that someone would use if they're trying to pull start a lawnmower. Like, it's just getting the job done. It's just moving it from point A to point B. It ain't a muscular contraction, and that's the difference between quality and quantity, right? You want to really focus on the quality, and not only will that help to build the physique, but it will reduce the risk of injury so you can stay in this game long term without beating yourself up. Because more often than not, most injuries come from trying to do too much too soon, lifting too heavy. Now, there's always exceptions to the rule. Don't get me wrong. Like, some people get injured on a warm-up set, for whatever reason. Something doesn't fire right. They pull, strain, something screws up. But most injuries, the vast majority of them, are when people are trying to do too much too soon and lift too heavy, right? They're overexerting themselves. And if you can focus, like, let go of that ego and just focus on the quality and, like, not get hung up on the numbers, you can make a lot faster progress. Faster progress, and the thing is the progress you make will be progress you keep, because you won't be setting yourself back with injuries. All right, got Neil joining in. Says, I'm planning to do some cement bags in my home gym for added variety, as I can customize from my home gym. Have you tried lifting these kinds of bags in your time, and how was your experience? I haven't used cement, but I've used sandbags. I guess that's the same thing. I did back in the day. I had some I ordered from Iron Mind. If you're not familiar with Iron Mind, just do a search for Iron Mind. They're popular, especially in the Olympic weightlifting world and strongman and stuff like that. But Iron Mind company, they actually make the Captain of Crush grippers, which are really high quality grippers, and they make a whole bunch of other lifting accessories as well, and a lot of stuff that's geared towards functional strength, Olympic lifting, strongman, that kind of stuff. Anyway, I ordered a set of their sandbags, their kit, if you will. And what it is really heavy duty canvas bags. And then it came with a bunch of other nylon bags that you could fill up with small bags of sand. And the idea that you'd take the small bags of sand, let's just say you put 5 pounds of sand in each one, and then you could adjust the weight into the big heavy canvas. It's almost like a big heavy canvas duffel bag, but it was very thick and very durable. So, like, you could throw it around and it's not going to get beat up or torn, or right. Like, you could grab it and you're not going to rip it, right? It was very thick, heavy canvas. So the idea behind it was you could use progressive overload with these heavy sandbags, because instead of taking the main canvas bag itself and filling that up with sand, you fill a whole bunch of little mini bags and then put the little mini bags in there so that you can have progressive overload. Start off with lightweight sandbag and then progressively add weight to it as you go, and incremental resistance that way. But the benefit of sandbag training is it's a lot harder than barbells and dumbbells and machine, because you're grabbing this awkward object. It's just dead weight, and it moves and it shifts, and it's hard to grab hold of. So, like, you could grab it, like, shoulder a big bag of sand and, like, do walks and carries with it. You could shoulder it and do, like, overhead presses with the sandbag, deadlifts, goblet squats. You can do a whole bunch of different exercises. Heck, you could even throw the sandbag if you wanted. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do with it, but it's just functional strength, meaning, like, just old school hard work. Whereas with barbells and dumbbells, it's easier, because obviously you're lifting something that's mechanically balanced. Like, the barbell is balanced on both sides. The dumbbells, the handles are easy to grip. They got the proper, knurling and grip and contour and everything else. So dumbbells and barbells are made to be lifted, and they make a heavy weight feel easier. Whereas a sandbag, where it's so awkward, it makes a weight feel heavier, right? and you like to do like an overhead press with a sandbag, you're not going to lift near the weight that you would if it was a barbell, because it's so hard and awkward and unstable and everything else. So it's good for building up that real world functional strength, the stability, the core stabilization, all that kind of stuff. So it's a really cool addition to a regular workout routine. Right, so I did that for a while because I went through a phase where I was really into different styles of functional strength, like a lot of different grips training, less old school strongman stuff, and of course the sandbags and things like that, sled dragging, all that kind of stuff. So it's good from that point of view. I mean, it'll add a lot of variety. Of course, it's cheap. I mean, you can get a killer workout with a bag of dirt, literally. Like that's literally what it is. It's a bag of dirt. All right. So good luck with it. Keep me posted with how it goes. I mean, I know you're a regular to the chats, and if we're friends on Facebook, send me a message. Let me know how it goes. Second now. Got to wet my glasses here. Where's this rag? I'm sweating and a drip of sweat off my brows on the lens of my glasses, blurring my vision. Next question here says, I remember as a kid trying to be jacked like a 90s WWE superstar or Rambo or Arnold. Those were my heroes back then. And 20 plus years later, I still have a long way to go despite working out a decade. I respect that. Yeah, I mean, though, it was a great time to grow up with those in that era, right? Like when the action heroes, like again, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone and Van Damme and like all the kick-ass action movies, like throughout the 80s and early 90s, that era, right? I mean, like it was cool. Right? I still sometimes will watch some of those old movies, like see them on Netflix or something like that, right? And just watch some of them. I mean, there's that stuff never goes old, right? Yeah. Great motivation, right? Before CGI and all this kind of stuff, and when you had artificial muscle superheroes, like you had real superheroes, like guys who were freaking in shape. I mean, that was my motivation. Like back in the day, like seeing Arnold in the movies and stuff. Like that's the first time I ever seen a man with muscles. And I actually remember the first movie that I seen. It was when he did Conan the Barbarian. It wasn't the first one; it was the second one. I remember seeing it, and like that just blew my mind. I was like, holy smokes, like here's a real life superhero, like it's someone with muscles. And I never seen that before, and it just had such a huge impact. And I was like, man, I gotta do something. I want to look like that, right? And I remember, as a kid doing push-ups in my bedroom, and like I say, well, if I do push-ups every day for the rest of the school year, I'll be as big as Arnold. And it didn't quite work out that way, but hey, I tried. But it was motivating. Yeah, absolutely. All right, what else we got? We have Tomahawk joining in. Welcome to the chat. We have JKS joining in. Lee, could you show a quick demonstration of proper hand position for a barbell shoulder press? I actually have some videos on YouTube. If you just do a search for Lee Hayward military press, you will see that, and it's a full breakdown. But I'll give you a quick little overview of how I like to do the barbell shoulder press, military press, whatever you want to call it. I like to do, when I'm doing shoulder press, I don't go too wide. Like a lot of people go wide, and what I like to do is I like to keep my, if you look at your forearms, I like to keep that 90-degree angle. And I usually bring my forearms a bit forward too when I'm in the bottom, because when you're doing a standing press, like you got to clear your head. So if your arms are out to the side and you're wider, you're going to smack yourself in the face, right? So I always kind of tuck the elbows to the front a little bit, and I go just wider than shoulder width. So like that's my grip right there. Don't go too wide, don't go too narrow, right? Just outside of shoulder width. And I actually find it more comfortable to use a false grip. Now I know some people will question that, and it's kind of personal preference, but I find when I use a false grip, meaning thumb on the same side as the palm, it actually takes some of the rotation and strain out of the shoulder joint, and it allows me to activate my triceps better. So I'll use it. And how I set up for the standing barbell shoulder press is I get a power rack, and I'll set the pins So it's just below the height of my shoulders. So I almost like do a little tiny mini quarter squat, get the barbell up, and then I'll unrack it and I hold it in that position. And then as you press, what I do is you press up and then you kind of like push your head forward. So as you press up, right, you push your head forward and lock your arms out behind your head. And I got the video that explains this in more detail, so you can be able to see it actually being done. But it's a practice. Like, you got to clear your head and then you want to press back. Because a common mistake that a lot of people make is they lean back because they want to clear their head, and they're almost doing like an incline bench press instead of a shoulder press. Like they're leaning back, so it's they're activating their upper chest. Now you're still activating the shoulders to a degree, but it places a lot more strain on the lumbar spine. Whereas if you can keep your posture neutral and flat back, your back is much more solid, and it's a true shoulder press. It's not an incline bench press with no bench, which is what a lot of people do. And that was a mistake that I made. I remember, and how I learned about this, I remember it was back in 2010. I was down training with Elliot Hulse at his original strength camp gym in Florida. It was not the big one that he's got now, but it was this little tiny hole in the wall gym that he had, the original strength camp gym where he kind of started his YouTube channel and all that. And I was doing some, it was log presses. It wasn't even a barbell press. I was doing log presses. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was leaning back and I was pressing it because I wanted to clear my head with the log. I was doing it that way. And he came over and he said, dude, he said, you're doing an incline bench press. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm doing a shoulder press. What are you talking about? And then, of course, he explained the difference to me and all that. And he coached me and showed me how to do a proper press, and clear the head and stuff, and not just arch and do an incline press. So that's the big one that you want to focus on when you're doing a shoulder press, is make sure it's an actual shoulder press. And I'd recommend, just start with the empty barbell until you get that form mastered, and then gradually build it up. So the empty barbell first, and then maybe put a couple fives on each side, get comfortable with it, and just build it up slowly while maintaining that form. And once you got the form and the technique in place, then it comes a lot easier. But yeah, that's a quick overview. But to get the full detailed version, just go to YouTube, search for Lee Hayward Military Press, and you'll see my video on it. And of course, there's bound to be a gazillion other videos that'll pop up as well. All right, moving on, we have Skinny 4070. What are your thoughts on training to be both big and strong? And really big and strong and fast. I want to have a really fast 100-meter and still be big and strong. All right, that's an interesting combination, and you can achieve it. Don't get me wrong, but you got to look at it in bigger picture perspective, if you will, because the extreme end of fast, you can't be very big because that extra weight is going to prevent you from maximizing your speed. At the extreme end of big, you can't be very fast. It's you got to have a combination here. So what you're trying to do, I mean, just basically achieve a well-rounded athletic physique, and you want to increase your strength, you want to increase your speed, and you want to increase your muscle mass. And you can still do that, right? You can still increase all those areas, but you're not going to be a 400-pound strongman who's got ridiculous strength and can also beat Usain Bolt in a sprint. No such specimen exists. There's a reason why Usain Bolt is not 400 pounds and a strongman competitor, and there's a reason why someone like Brian Shaw is not out there sprinting and winning Olympic medals in the 100-meter sprint. You can't have it all, right? You got to focus on just trying to be the best version of you, if you will. Now, with that being said, you can improve upon what you currently have. You can be better than you were before, right? You can be better than you were before in terms of your muscularity. You can be better than you were before in terms of your strength, and you can be better than you were before in terms of your speed. But when it comes to the ultimate, you can't have it all, right? I actually made a video about this a while back for one of my coaching students who's was competing in triathlons and also wanted to do bodybuilding. And like he kind of wanted to have everything. And like you can still make progress. Like you can still build muscle. You can still do your triathlons. I mean, but you're not going to exceed at the highest level in either or, unless one, you're genetically gifted for it. And obviously you prioritize your training for what it is, right? Like, because it's two totally different forms of stimulation, right? Like, you know, maximum endurance versus maximum muscle and power. So you kind of have to prioritize what's the most important. So like in your situation, what is the most important? Like, is it the sprinting, right? Because I mean, you look at a sprinter, like they're still muscular and they're still strong, but they're not like world's strongest man muscular and strong. But by average gym standards, they're freaking strong. Like I remember what's his name? Former Canadian sprinter Ben Johnson back in the day. I remember watching the documentary about him, and like he used to squat 600 pounds in training, which by normal standards, that's astronomical. Like that's huge by the average gym goer, but by the elite powerlifting standards, like that's not, you know, I mean, it's still respectable, but it's no means world class. But his sprinting was world class. So, like I say, you got to look at the bigger picture. But there, that's my thoughts on it. I mean, I could keep rambling on, but hopefully you kind of get the idea. And to help you with that, do a search for my video. Can't even, what's it? Endurance versus strength. Let me just see. I'm just going to do a quick search for it myself because I can't even remember what the title of the video was. Let me see if it comes up there. Strength versus endurance. Does endurance training build muscle? I think that's what. So if you do a Lee Hayward strength versus endurance, you should see that video. And like I say, it goes into detail and breaking this down. It was actually like a 20-minute presentation that I put together and just recorded it, you know, going into detail and using real world examples that you can relate to. All right, where else are we there? Moving on, folks. Moving on. This is from Solid Geddo. I got a green egg iron mine for grips a few years back. Still use it. I want to get the blue one when I level up in grip strength. I'm not familiar with the green eggs. Green eggs and ham. Sam, I am. I'll have to do a search for that. I'm not. It's again, Iron Mind's got so many gadgets and stuff out there for strength. I've never seen the eggs myself. I've seen a lot of their stuff, but I haven't been following it recently. So these green eggs and blue eggs and all that must be something relatively new. I'll have to do a search after the video chat's over. What else we got there? How does one know when novice linear progression is exhausted and you need to start intermediate stage periodization? I'm getting tongue-tied. Periodization. You know, when you hit a plateau with your training, meaning like you're doing everything that you think is right. You're training hard, you're eating right and everything else, and you're trying to train in a progressive overload fashion, but it's just not happening. Then you need to reevaluate what you're doing. And this is an individual thing. Like there's not a one size fits all answer. Like, hey, when your progress slows down, do this. Or when your progress, you know, when you can't add another 5 pounds to your bench press, do that. Like it's individual because there could be multiple reasons why you hit a plateau. And it may not necessarily be the workout program itself. And in a lot of cases, it's not. It's other factors that come into play. Like I was having a coaching call with one of my students there last night. And one thing that was hindering his whole progress, like he's been following the program, following his macros, following his workouts and everything. Like it wasn't working right. He started focusing on sleep, and he actually was working with a professional to help him go through an actual structured program to increase the quality of his sleep. And he started doing that, and over the past few weeks he's been getting better quality sleep. And since he's been getting better quality sleep, everything else has been improving in direct proportion. Like his mental clarity is better, his performance at work is better. His mood is elevated, right? His stress levels are reduced. His workouts are, he's actually making progress again in his workouts. Like, and it was all due to poor sleep. So like you could have the workouts, the nutrition, the macros, the training split, the supplements and all that stuff could be laid out spot on, perfect, and like, man, I'm doing everything right. But it could be like your poor sleep, and that could hold your whole progress back. So, but like I say, that's not the situation for everybody, because someone else might be at a plateau who's getting plenty of sleep or getting too much sleep. Like, it depends on the individual. So this is where having a coach can really help. Someone who can look under the hood, so to speak, and dissect like what it is that you're doing, what's working, what's not working, and what needs fixing. It's almost like going to the garage and saying, my car won't start. What do I do? I mean, it could be a dead battery. It could be out of gas. It could need new spark plugs. Like there could be electrical problems. The computer could be shot. Like there's so many things that could cause a car not to start, right? Simply going to the mechanic and saying, my car won't start. How much is it going to cost to fix it? Like, they don't know. They got to look under the hood. They got to check it out. They got to do a diagnostics. They got to actually see what the frig is wrong with your car and why it's not starting, right? So I mean, saying like, hey, I'm not making progress with my workouts. What do I do next? Like, we don't know. We got to look under the hood and we got to see what's going on. Like, what are you doing? What's working? What's not working? How long have you been stuck in this problem? And blah, blah, blah. Like, that's where we really need the coach and someone with experience who actually knows what the heck they're doing and who's worked with people to overcome these challenges, versus just trying to Google search, hey, how do I increase my bench press? And then you get 1,001 responses and you don't know which one is right. All right. So hopefully that helps. What else we got? John is joining in. He says, I think I know how my forearms got big with grippers, but time under tension, 2 seconds, eccentric, fast, concentric. It's not just about weight. I think I know how my forearms got big with grippers, with just grippers. I don't know if that's a question or a comment or what, but to acknowledge that hand gripper training is one of, like, it's a missing link for people who want to build up their forearms. Because back in the day, my grip strength sucked because I never prioritized grips training, never did any grip training, honestly. And the only grip training I did was grabbing barbells and dumbbell handles. And I used to cheat on that a lot of times by using lifting straps. So I never did any direct grip training. Now, I still did forearm exercises like wrist curls and reverse curls and all that, thinking, oh, I got all my bases covered, right? I'm doing forearm work. But I never maximized grip strength. And it was only when I learned about grip training and I started studying it and applying it. So in 2004, that's when I got heavy into grip training. And I started focusing on that. Within 3 months of adding heavy hand grippers to my workouts, I was able to add a full inch to my forearms, and my grip strength just like skyrocketed to another level. It was just like a missing link because it was an area of training that I did not focus on. And then in proportion, when your grip is stronger, your other lifts will increase as well, because now you got a more secure connection when you're doing your other exercises. So you'll feel stronger when you're doing rows, when you're doing shrugs, when you're doing bicep curls or anything like that. Like when you got a stronger connection, you can just exert so much more force and be more confident with the weights. Whereas if you got a weak grip, you're not going to be able to do that. And to kind of give you an analogy, like imagine you got really sweaty palms, or like if you oil down the barbell and it's super slick and slippery, like you're not going to be able to exert any force on that thing, right? It's just going to be so slippery, be losing your grip. But if you got a secure grip, your strength is just going to go up in all exercises. Oh, excuse me. Gotta get a drink there. It's sparkling water, not alcohol. All right, what else we got there? Neil's joining in, says, thanks, Lee. Have a great weekend. You're welcome. And I certainly plan on having a good weekend. What else we got there? Billy's got a question. Or he doesn't actually. He's got a comment. Hey, Big Lee, Savage Beast. Keep up the great work. Thanks for the streams and the videos. Cheers with a muscly. With a muscly emoji. All right. Thanks, Billy. Appreciate it. Got David is joining in. We've got Ninth Island Pyro saying thoughts on having a cheat day once a week. I cross-train strongman, CrossFit, bodybuilding. I eat pretty clean and track my calories. Would it hinder performance in any way? Yes, I do have thoughts on a cheat day once a week. I'm not a fan of it. All right, I'm going to be brutally honest. Now, with that being said, some people go and have their cheat day and they still make it work and they still make progress and everything else. But I'm going to share, I'm going to be devil's advocate here and share my opinion on a cheat day, because I used to do cheat days, right? I remember when cheat days really became popular is when Bill Phillips launched the book Body for Life and that whole program, because that was his model, is you eat clean and you exercise 6 days a week, but you have one day where you just let it go. So you don't exercise and eat whatever the heck you want. Get it out of your system, right? Like, and that works. Don't get me wrong. That can certainly work, but it can also backfire. And it backfires when people have this like all or nothing extreme mentality. And I was that person. I had this all or nothing extreme mentality. And I used to have my cheat day, and it actually caused plateaus, especially in fat loss. So you got to look at it too. Like, what's your main priority? I mean, if your main priority is simply just gaining muscle and get stronger, it's probably not going to have an impact. I mean, it could actually help. But if your main goal and priority is to get lean, the cheat day could actually sabotage your progress. And I'll give you an example of how this works. Let's just say you create a 500 calorie deficit from Monday to Saturday, right? You're strict, you're doing your cardio, you're eating clean, everything's right, like boom, 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 everything to the letter. And you're averaging a 500 per day calorie deficit. So at the end of your 6 days of diet and exercise, you've got yourself a 3,000 calorie deficit for the week. And then on the weekend, you have your cheat day. On Sunday, let's just say, is your cheat day. And you go all out. You have your bacon and eggs and sausage for breakfast, and you go out for, whatever. You go out to fast food for lunch, and then you go out for ice cream in the afternoon, and you hit up the all-you-can-eat buffet for dinner, and then you have a bag of potato chips and ice cream while you're watching a movie at nighttime. And you just like go hog wild, ape shit crazy, and just eat whatever you want. You could easily cancel out your entire 3,000 calorie deficit that you created over the course of the week with your one cheat day. And this was me. This is what I used to do. I used to diet 6 days a week and then have cheat day. And in my case, I used to go extreme with it. I used to like, okay, I get to have one cheat day. So that's technically a day is 24 hours. And my cheat day was Saturday. But I used to stay awake Friday night until the clock rolled over to midnight. And this is how all or nothing crazy I was. I'd wait till 12:01 Friday night / Saturday morning, however you want to look at it. And then as soon as it hit 12:01 a.m., I'd say, it's Saturday, it's cheat day. And I would have the biggest, dirtiest cheat. Like I'd have a pizza, I'd have potato chips, I'd have ice cream or cakes and cookies and whatever the crap I wanted. I'd have it all laid out, and I'd have this big, massive cheat, probably watch a movie or something until the wee hours of the morning. And then I'd go to bed like fat and bloated from all the cheat that I had. Then I'd wake up in the morning, or, whenever I'd wake up, right? It probably wasn't early in the morning, but, before noon, hopefully. And then we go out to brunch, so it'd be pancakes and bacon and eggs and sausage and all this kind of stuff. And I'd slam that back. And then probably go for ice cream in the afternoon. And then for dinner, I'd have whatever. I mean, it could be fish and chips, or it could be takeaway or whatever. I mean, but I would just eat and eat and eat anything and everything, like whatever I was craving, whatever I was fancying. And I would keep that right up until 11:59 Saturday night. So I'd start from 12:01 right on up for a full 24 hours, right before the stroke of midnight the next night. So I'd have my full 24-hour cheat day. And I never made any progress by having the cheat day, right? Because I would just overkill. All right. I just overdo it. So now how I do it is cheat meals. And even with cheat meals, you can be extra conservative with those meals. It doesn't have to be a full-on blown meal. So I don't even plan for cheats anymore, right? Like this is part of my Muscle After 40 blueprint program. And this is something I teach my coaching students is don't even plan to have a cheat meal or anything like that. Just focus on your normal eating habits, like eating natural unprocessed foods and getting used to having that as the base and the foundation. And then when you're craving something, like let's say you're craving pizza, right? Like you want to have a pizza. Well, don't deny it. Have the pizza, but do so in moderation. And the reason why I encourage people to not deny themselves of their cravings is because if you deny yourself of your cravings or you put rules around it, like, oh, I'm not allowed to have it, not allowed to have it, not allowed to have it, the craving starts to build and it builds and it builds and builds. Whereas like, let's just say, I'm craving a cookie, right? I'll use a cookie as an example. Instead of me saying, no, not allowed to eat cookies, not allowed to eat cookies. I want a cookie, but no, not allowed to eat it. I'm on a diet. And I keep denying myself the cookie, right? And I say, nope, not allowed to have it, not allowed to have it. Then yes, in the moment you deny it, but that craving in the back of your mind is building and is building. And then of course, as you start thinking about the cookies more, you want it. Like because you're not allowed to have it, you actually want it more. And then eventually you're going to get to the point where you say like, screw it. I can't stand it. I got to give in. I can't deal with this anymore. And then you eat a whole box of cookies. Whereas if you had to nip the craving when it was small, like when you initially had that cookie craving, if you had a cookie or two, get the craving out of your system, then you can forget about it and move on. And then it's no big deal. And when you actually give yourself permission to have a cheat whenever you want, like, but in moderation, you actually want it less. Because if you can have something whenever you want it less. But if something is scarce and it's rare, you want it more. So like if you put these rules around your cheat foods and your cheat meals, saying like, I'm not allowed to have that, not allowed to have it, subconsciously, you actually want it more. Whereas if you say like, I can have it whenever I want, like, it's like, well, what's the rush? I can have it whenever I want. Like, who cares if I have it now or have it later? Like, it reduces the pressure. It reduces the cravings or the anxiety around it because you can have it whenever you want. Like, we live in a world of abundance. Like, there's no scarcity. I mean, when you operate from that mindset, you actually want things less. So that's the way I operate when it comes to eating foods. And when I'm coaching people, I try and get them to wrap their mind around this. And we have a whole system for this, but it's a different philosophy. And then when it comes to the cheat meals, this is how I go about it. So I actually used the analogy earlier. I was saying, like, let's say you want to have pizza you want to have a pizza night, cheat night. Well, instead of just starting with pizza, like start with your natural foods that you normally eat first. So like in my case, I always try to have protein and vegetables with each meal, right? So this is something I actually did a few weeks ago. We ordered pizza. And what I did is I started, like, I ordered the pizza. And while I was waiting for the pizza to be delivered, I went to the fridge and I made myself a large chicken salad. So I got garden salad, chopped up a chicken breast, put in it. I was eating that while I was waiting for the pizza to be delivered. So I pre-filled my belly with chicken and vegetables so that it took the edge off my hunger. And it also made sure that I had the high nutrient dense foods in my system. So I had the chicken and veggies in there first. And then when the pizza came, like I wasn't famished because I already had food in my stomach. So I had 2 slices of pizza and then I was like, I'm stuffed. Like I was physically full, but I still got the pizza craving out of my system, right? I had 2 slices of pizza and I thoroughly enjoyed the pizza. It was delicious, but the 2 slices was more than enough. Whereas if I had waited and held off for the pizza, I'd probably end up eating 5 or 6 slices or more before I got to that point where I was stuffed. And then I would do a lot more damage because I ate so much more pizza and all that, high fat, high calorie dense food. Whereas by filling up with the protein and veggies first and then satisfying the pizza craving afterwards, I still got the craving out of my system and I minimized the damage. So it's a way to kind of like have your cake and eat it too, right? It's a way to manage your cheat meals and do this frequently. Like don't let those cheat cravings build to the point where they're uncontrollable, right? Have them more frequently. So instead of having like one big old massive cheat day per week, now I'll probably have 2 or 3 cheat meals throughout the week, but I'll do so in this fashion where I'll still have my good natural on processed foods, my protein and veggies first, and then a little bit of whatever it is I'm craving, right? So like if I want cookies, well, I'm going to have my main food, my protein and veggies first, and then I might have a cookie or two for dessert afterwards, right? And I do that for all my meals, right? Like eat the good food first to take the edge off your hunger, to pre-fill your belly, and then satisfy the craving with a small serving of whatever. And this is a great way to manage your cheat cravings and not feel like you're on a diet and not have them get out of control. And you'll find that when you satisfy them with smaller, more frequent cheat foods, if you will, it just becomes something like it's not even a burden anymore. Like it doesn't even feel like you're on a diet, because if you're craving something, hey, I can have it whenever I want it. Just going to have it in small servings and in moderation, but it's no big deal. Whereas if you keep saying, I'm not allowed to have it, not allowed to have it, or I got to wait till cheat day before I can have it, very often you go overboard, which is exactly what I did. You know, the midnight to midnight full 24-hour cheat day where I purposely went overboard. And I made damn sure that I maximized my 24-hour cheat day, because in my mind it was a scarcity thing. Like this only happens once a week, right? I better make the most of it, because gosh, I'm gonna have to go another whole 6 days of feeling like I'm on a diet before I get to cheat again. So I'd always go overboard, and that actually ended up sabotaging my progress versus helping it. Right? I'll give you another analogy to kind of drive this home. Like imagine someone's really frugal with their money. Like they're always pinching pennies and clipping coupons and frugal, don't want to spend any money, right? They're always cheap, saving money. And then they have a weekend in Las Vegas and they go and blow $10,000 on the slot machine in one weekend. Like you could have the whole rest of the month, right? Like you could have 29 days of the month where you were saving money, and then one day in Vegas and blow it all and just totally derail everything and even set yourself back from all the money you saved from being frugal. Same applies with the cheat day, right? You could be diet, strict, calorie deficit all week long, have a cheat day, and then just undo all the progress you made all week long, right? So you got to think bigger. And this is where a lot of people screw up, is because yeah, they're on track most days, but then the damage they do on those days where they screw up is undoing the progress that they made when they were on track. And this is where I hear a lot of people say, I'm eating right, I'm exercising, I do everything right. Why am I not losing weight? Why am I not doing this? It's like, okay, tell me about the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. Like, don't tell me about all the good things you're doing. Tell me about when you screw up from time to time. And then when that happens, that's when you really see the progress, the true progress, or lack thereof, I should say. What do you want? Oh.
Is there a way we can get a garage door open more?
What?
I was going to park Tony's vehicle in there because she's trying to get his garage ready for his birthday tomorrow.
There's no way to open it no more.
Can it come open more? It looks like it can come open a bit more on the chain.
My wife is talking to me behind the camera, in case you're wondering. I don't know.
No? Oh, okay.
I don't. Not without taking the door off the hinges. I don't. Anyway. My neighbor wants to park his truck or something in my garage, and my garage door doesn't open wide enough. Yeah. What? First world problems. The garage door doesn't open wide enough for your neighbor's vehicle. Anyway, where was I? Okay. Some people are talking about green eggs. I'll have to look them up, right? Green eggs for grip strength. I kind of got an idea what it is, I've never used one. Thanks again for this. That's from Alex. You're welcome. Can you teach us how to breathe during different types of lifts? I actually have a YouTube video covering that in detail. And there's 3 main types of breathing for exercise. And if you do a search for Lee Hayward, how to breathe on YouTube, so go to YouTube, Lee Hayward, breathing. Let me just see. 3 breathing techniques to use when lifting weights. That's the name of the video. Lee Hayward breathing techniques, or even Lee. It should pop up there in the search engine, or in this, the search. And I cover the 3 techniques to use when lifting weights, resistance training, because I mean, it could apply to body weight exercises, it could apply to weightlifting, but there's 3 techniques, and it all depends on the exercise you're doing. It depends on the intensity of that exercise and how many repetitions, because if you're doing high reps, the technique is different than if you're doing like low reps or a 1 rep max. And if you're doing body weight exercises, is different than if you're doing like low rep heavy barbell training, right? So I go into detail and I give you real world examples of how to use each one of those techniques. So that's how you can answer that one. What else we got there? What are your thoughts on minimalist workouts, squat, dips one day and deadlifts and chin-ups a few days later? I've done minimalist workouts like that and actually made really good progress. A prime example of a minimalist workout that is super effective is the 20 rep squat program. It is super simple, but super effective, and it's one I made some of my best gains on. And if you're not familiar with that, again, do a search. Works. A lot of these are old school videos that I made back in the old days of YouTube, but the information is just as applicable today as it was back then. I remember I was answering a question for somebody on it was actually in a YouTube video, and some snot commented there saying, "Oh, that advice is so 2010," and I was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Like, if something worked in 2010, do you think it's not going to work in 2020 or 22 or whatever? Like, do you think the human body has evolved so much over the past decade that something that worked back then is not going to be working today? Like, no. Diet and exercise is old as dirt, right? Like, this stuff works. I mean, heck, we're still looking at some of the guys from the pumping iron days from back in the 60s and 70s and looking at those like, man, like that's the pinnacle of physical development. I mean, most people would love to look good as the bodybuilders did back in the pumping iron days, in the 60s and 70s. I mean, if it worked back in the 60s and 70s, do you think it could still work today? Heck yeah, right? So some of these older videos, even though they are older videos by YouTube standards, the information is still just as applicable and just as effective as today as it was 10 years ago or longer. All right, guys, what else we got there? I'm going to get ready and clue it up soon because I got to go see what my neighbor is doing out there. He's just going to have a look. He's driving his rig into my garage, and the garage won't open wide enough, so I got to go see what the heck's on the go. What are your thoughts on minimalist workouts? Would 20 ounce? Would drinking beer on rest days affect your gains? It ain't going to help, but you got to look at the bigger picture. Like, if you're doing enough good things to counteract the negatives, you can still make progress, right? I mean, some people make progress drinking alcohol or doing things that they shouldn't do, not because of it, but in spite of it. So you got to look at it like a balancing act. Like, if you're doing more good things than you are bad things, you can still make progress. So if the only bad thing you do, like you're eating right, you're exercising, you're getting adequate sleep, like your stress levels are low, like everything is spot on, but then you have a beer on the weekend, like that beer on the weekend isn't going to cancel out all the good stuff that you're doing, right? I mean, it's not going to help. It is going to hinder a little bit, but you still got enough good stuff going for you that you can make it work. And that's what it is. It's just a balancing act. Like, are you making more good decisions or bad decisions, right? And as long as you're making more good decisions than bad, you can still make this work. So, a beer is not going to help, but at the same time, it's not necessarily going to stop your progress. What else we got there? What are your thoughts on volume overload? Say leg extensions, 5 sets going up 50 reps up to 100 reps we finish. I've utilized techniques like that to help bring up stubborn body parts, especially when I was getting ready for bodybuilding competitions, and I found it was actually quite effective. Like, one of the strategies we used to use if people were having trouble getting definition in certain areas would be really high volume, high repetition work. So like prime example, if someone couldn't get their separation in their quads, high rep leg extensions. And that's something that I actually utilize I would literally do 100 reps of leg extensions every workout with super lightweight. Probably just like 20 fashion. So as many reps as you could do till rest them, 10, 20 seconds, do another many sets or many reps as you could do, rest 10, 20 seconds, and just keep going until you completed 100 total reps. And the idea was just pumping blood flow, circulation into that muscle, and just as much metabolic activity as you could. And just the sheer volume used to help to, just spur on new growth, and also help to aid with bringing out the definition and detail. So yeah, I mean, there's a time and a place for all these stuff. I mean, it's kind of more advanced and it's kind of unconventional, and like for the average person who's getting started, it's certainly not applicable. But there are certain situations when things like that can be utilized, and I found it very effective in a bodybuilding contest prep situation. So that's when I would utilize it. Ellen's saying, I enjoyed your cheat day story. Very relatable. All right, good stuff. I'm glad you did. Alex says, it's not a cheat day, it's a treat day. Well, whatever the frick you call it. If your cheat day, treat day, whatever, resembles anything like I related to when I was sharing my story, then it ain't going to help. All right. What else we got there? We got, I think that's it. We got all the questions coming through. Solid Geodo saying, I counter with green tea or black tea. Don't know if I'm missing something there. Oh, okay. He's relating to the beer. he said, like, if drinking, well, you'd be much better off drinking tea versus drinking beer, right? You make better gains there. Yeah. Anyway, guys, I'm going to get ready and clue it up. Hopefully you enjoyed the video chat. As always, I enjoy doing them, right? That I wouldn't do them if I didn't enjoy it. That's why I do these whole things, because I enjoy chatting and interacting with you, and hopefully sharing a few nuggets of wisdom. So hopefully you got a few takeaways from this and some value. And if you do have any questions or you need some help on anything we covered, or maybe stuff that we didn't cover, feel free to reach out to me. I've got my email address in the description of this video, so just pop that open and you can shoot me an email, or you can friend me up over on Facebook and we can have a chat through Messenger, through Facebook. And if you friend me up over on Facebook and you found me through this video, let me know. Just say, hey, I follow you over on YouTube and I wanted to add you as a friend on Facebook. Something like that. Just send me a little message. Let me know, because it just helps to create that connection, and we can have a chat. So if there's anything that you want to further elaborate on, or maybe you got some individual questions or challenges related to your own situation, feel free to email me. And if you need some help with a customized fitness and nutrition program, we can discuss that as well, right? Because we got a whole inner circle VIP group, right? It's the Muscle After 40 blueprint, and it's a small supportive. They're helping and encouraging each other, and it's basically following a structure. And it's a much more advanced, close-knit group, and we're literally communicating and coaching back and forth on a daily basis, through the private. We have our Muscle After 40 Facebook group. We have regular coaching calls and Zoom meetings and stuff like that, and just really helping people take their fitness and physique goals to that next level. So if that's something you're interested in, you'd like to come on board with the whole Muscle After 40 blueprint team, reach out to me, let me know, right? And we can have a chat and see if you'd be a good fit for the program. In the meantime, I'm going to clue it up, and hopefully you have yourself a great weekend, and I will talk to you next week. Hopefully we'll be doing it live at 5 instead of likes, but either way, I'll be talking to you next week, and have yourself a good one, and we'll be in touch. Take care. Over and out.